to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, the Wave Daddy, Young Fish, Rob Lee, for those who are unabated, undipped. For you noobs. And today I am super excited to welcome a multi-talented creative from Northeast Baltimore. Gang. He's a musician, writer, marketing expert, brand consultant known for his work on Spence Start, a platform for creatives to develop and share original ideas. Please welcome the homie Spence. Welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you. Thank you for having me, bro.
Absolutely, 100%. And as we get into it, I like to, obviously we know each other.
We send each other memes. I feel like that's when we established our friendship. It's like, is this a meme? Oh, we good.
That's the thing. It's like you're kind of like, all right, how edgy can I get with this? Okay, we good.
Send me all the funny shit.
So, if you will, could you start off by telling us a bit, because you're in a sort of this creative polymath lane, right? And tell us a bit of some of those early creative interests, and really sort of what's your story, particularly when you were growing up. So early creative interests, and really what was the highlights of growing up for you when it comes to your creative and some of the work that you're doing now.
Cool. So where the story for me starts is in elementary school. I've always kind of been really keen, or always had a really keen interest in music itself. And my father was a musician. He sang. He was one of the major voices at Morgan State and Nathan Carter's ensemble that he had there. He also sang for the band at Morgan State. So I've always had a lot of exposure to music throughout my life. But I would have to credit my elementary school music teacher, Miss Minor. She was the choir director there. And
it's a great name, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like my entire story is just littered with gems and cool stuff. It's like, oh, that I see how that works. But she was pretty much organizing all the kids there. And I know that I probably wasn't that good at singing, but it was the exposure to music that was really important. You know what I mean? It was I got to explore it with reckless abandon. Yeah. And then naturally, the next step from there was going into church, being a church choir and everything along those lines. But the thing that I've always wanted to kind of get to or get my hands on was the drums. But as with many kids in Baltimore City, we didn't really have a lot of resources. So I just kind of had to make do with what I could, or find the connectivity wherever I could. And when I started at Lake Clifton, so I just sped past middle school because that's traumatic for everybody. When I got to high school, I started to learn how to read music at Lake Clifton. And then once I transferred from Lake Clifton to City, that's really where I was my brain was just kind of open to all the possibilities of music. So it was learning how to read music. Then you could play different instruments. Then you could have directors that were there that was really hands-on. My high school director, Terrence Gallup, was amazing. He would teach you how to read music. He would teach you how to do pretty much all these different things. He took me to my college. Yeah. My first audition, just that is where a lot of it starts. It always started with music with me. But the thing for me, and as quiet as it's kept, whenever I would hear music, I would always see film, or I would always see specific images that I would want to put this music to. And naturally, now that we're in this age where you can just kind of create your own things online, I'm seeing a lot of the connectivity and seeing how a lot of those things blend. And fast forward in the story a little bit further, when I started gigging for myself, I had to market myself. So being out into the field and saying, hey, can you book our band? They'd be like, well, where's your content? And it's I have content. I'm just going to create it and make it now for you. And a lot of it is just understanding the business savviness and being able to kind of talk with people and kind of have those good business relationships. And it's led me here.
Yeah, and thank you. And City Forever, by the way.
City Forever. You 03, right?
Yeah, I'm 03. Yeah.
Facts.
So It's interesting. I think it's a few things that are in there, and thank you for walking us through in a very abbreviated way, because it's a lot. Like
So much that I left out.
middle school, you're right, a lot of bad cornrows, a lot of time. That's high school as well for me. But yeah, I think when you're doing multiple things and figuring out like, oh, this is how you do this. Like you might do the creative thing. Like for me, I've been a podcaster and a data analyst almost as long as each other, both running concurrently. So when someone kind of touching on what you'd mentioned, hey, can you tell us about the data? I was like, I can actually. And it's just like, you want it in SQL? How you want it? You
pretty much. Yeah.
How do you want it presented? Is it, and what kind of dashboard you need? Tableau? Got you.
That's excellent, man. I love being able to play both sides of it, because that's where I find with a lot of creatives, I've run into a lot of creatives where it's just like they're just creatives. It's like, I just want to create the things, I just want to do the things, and it's like, that's amazing that you're so talented at that. But on the business side of this, has anyone looked at your books? Do you know how to read analytics? Do you know what analytics are? Okay, well,
it's one of the things, I agree, it's one of the things where you may not need to be the person that's doing it all the time. Because we always had limited resources. But if you're hiring a person, you need to know what they're telling you to make sure they're not just giving you gas, it's giving you nonsense, what have you. And so in talking about that sort of like, I think you covered where sort of that interconnectivity is at and where they overlap. But is it something that comes from maybe the music side that goes into the business side of what your background includes that kind of serves each other, that sort of like intersection between disciplines? Like, I'm really about my business when it comes to music because I know what it takes from a brand consulting sort of standpoint, or I've worked with creatives, so I know some of the unique problems that they interact and work with because I'm a creative when it comes to this consulting.
I feel like it's a perfect marriage of the two concepts because I've been in both for long enough to understand. So part of the story that I skipped out on was I was in finance. I was in banking for a long time, for 11 years. And I was good enough at it to be like a regional officer. So I would like go out and do these sales presentations and all these things like that. And a lot of that has transferable job skills when it comes to like getting the gigs for yourself. So often what I would find myself doing is in these business meetings is kind of brokering a deal between the creatives and the business, whereas it's like, well, we want to pay you this amount. It's like, well, we're not going to accept that because we've worked really hard on this creative product that you're trying to lowball us for. So maybe respect the craft a little bit more. And on the outside of this, maybe we can configure a better deal for you. So, the way that I viewed it is just kind of like bringing the two concepts together and bridging that gap. The thing that I love about about the way that I handle things, I don't feel like I'm a very stubborn person when it comes down to like getting things done. So on the creative side of things, if you need me to kind of blend in with what's going on, it's perfectly fine. But on the business side of things, if you need me to explain it to you a little bit clearer for you, or if you need me to kind of push a deal through, I'm certainly good at that too. You know what I mean? I'm very good at inculcating, making people think it was their idea.
Yeah, and I think that all of that you're describing came through in the initial conversation we had. And I was just like, I know a lot of this, bro. It's kind of my energy. But also I was just like, all right, let me check and get a sense on like what your background was. And it's like, all right. And more so that I'm not wasting your time. That was kind of the way that I presented it. I was just like, no, I know this. You don't need to really explain that. Or, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's talk more about that to make the most out of our time and see really how can I, from I was speaking to you initially from a marketing standpoint of what can I give you to make what I'm trying to put out there? Because sometimes we lose the message as creatives. I was like, how can I put out this thing that I'm thinking and I'm trying to form still, because it was very loose at the time. And how can I put that out there that makes like what you're doing easier? How can I give you something that you can say, oh, I can take this, I can run with this, I can make this happen, and almost Rosetta Stone that thing?
I think a lot of it has to do with grace and the comfortability on both sides of it, because the business side is always going to want to see how profitable it is. Whereas on the creative side of it, you're always going to want to make sure that your craft is being respected. So understanding the need on both ends of it, it's a little bit easier for me to articulate. And at the same time, it kind of makes those difficult conversations easy to have, because it's like, well, the business wants you to be able to do this, and the creativity isn't bringing this. So
where do you grow it? Have you ever thought about doing it in this way? And so on. And I find that, I look back at that conversation in some regards as a reference point, right? Where when I'm speaking with someone, I'm trying to give some consulting, because I find myself being in that position a bit more recently because of the nature of what I'm doing with this podcast. And people are like, so what do you think? I was like, do you want to know what I think? Because I was like,
I got some thoughts.
I'm a critic. I can be a real critic. I was like, so this is where you messed up. This is where you could do it better. And it's like, look, put your feelings out there real quick, right? This is going to help you. I assure you this is going to help you.
Big facts. I think for a lot of that's the sweet spot of being able to just kind of establish how these connections are going to be made. Like, the business needs this, the creative needs this. How do we make this work?
Yeah. And, being in that spot of, I was in marketing analytics for the first 5 years. Wow. After the first 2 years of doing that, realizing that this ain't it completely, that's when I started podcasting. It's kind of like a mix. So I brought a lot of that background and knowledge I had from a marketing standpoint and having a business degree to that approach. So it's just like, this is why these things are set up in a way that this works. I'm sure someone from a creative realm would be like, yo, you sure you should be doing that? Or someone from a business realm is like, I don't know if that's quite sound. It's like, but it works in that way. So as a Baltimorean, much like myself, what are some of the things that define the culture here from a creative or from a branding lens? I think I want to spend more time talking about culture for this reason. I find that as time goes on and things erode, the culture gets shifted. Who's telling the stories about this is what this is? Like, let's say maybe in 5-10 years, we're not part of the conversation anymore. And what our vantage point on the culture, quote unquote, isn't as valid or is gone because time has passed. So, as we document that almost from an archival standpoint, like what are some of the things that define like the culture in Baltimore from your vantage point?
From my vantage point, I think it's very important to state that there is more to Baltimore than the HBO narrative that is consistently perpetuated. And I say that even as a hypocrite, because I was in We Own the City. So
like, yeah, here's the thing.
I was like, I'll take the money. I'll be the angry black guy. Sure. But there's so much more to the stories that we have here. I think that there's like our city is bursting at the seams with creativity, with different narratives, with I would say unique narratives, because one of the when I think of myself, I don't necessarily think of myself as like a street dude, but I do think of myself as somebody that understood certain aspects of it. And I think that is part of the uniqueness of Baltimore City, because I was generally a sheltered kid. Like, my parents were very strict. It was like, be in the house. I don't know who these people are, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's how my parents raised me. But even with them raising me like that, there was a street element to almost every aspect of my upbringing. You know what I mean? Like, my father was a guidance counselor at Forest Park. So I would go with him to school and I would see the things that was happening. You know what I mean? So I think that the danger of Baltimore City it's very evident, but I think that there's gradients of creativity that come from that. And within those rights, I think that with every Baltimore artist, you're going to find a bit of grit. You're going to find a bit of, I would say, aggressiveness. And I think that that's just naturally what comes with being a part of the city and having the city be a part of you. I remember being from here and like being just generally like a very reserved person. But when I went to school in Virginia, when I went to school in Virginia, like the key thing that everybody was, it was like, you are a very aggressive person. It's like I didn't think that I was, but in Virginia, it's like people will just walk up to you and just start speaking on the street. It's like, I'm not familiar with this. Usually when this happens back home, it's like somebody's trying to rob me. So it's like that. It's an awareness that you get from being in this city. But I think that what you do with that is a part of your creativity.
I I've gotten the sort of the response around that of, yo, Rob, we don't know if you're gritty enough. Are you really from Baltimore? That's what I've got.
It's like, that. You want me to flip the switch, bro? You want me to rob you? What do you want from me?
And I go into other cities that I think have sort of that similarity, like, New Orleans, I was talking about before we got started, and in Philadelphia. I'll go up there and I'll have these conversations. And they're like, you from here, bro? I was like, nah, not at all. I'm from Baltimore, B.
Here's the thing. I think that when you go into any specific area where Black people are going to be, the thing that you automatically get if you're from Baltimore is a level of respect. You get that and you give that. And I think that when you carry yourself a very specific way, when you're from here, you understand certain hood dynamics. You know what I'm saying? And you know how to carry yourself. Like if I'm walking past a group of dudes that's in a dice game, I'm not going to walk by all meek and shit. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to walk. You know what I mean? I'm going to walk by like I belong there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories of myself is for my birthday, 2021. One of my favorite cities, well, I'm not say one of my favorite cities. My first time going to the city was Chicago. And it's a book that I was reading, and there was a Black publisher in Chicago that Malcolm X was like very pivotal in being able to kind of get started. So I took the flight there. I got off. I took the metro in. I took the bus in and everything like that. I found this Black publisher, and I went in there, and they were like, "You took the bus here?" I was like, "Yeah." And they was like, "This not it," because it was on 79th. Yeah. It was like, that's the thing that all the rappers in Chicago talk about. But it's not like I was trying to disrespect. It was more so like, yo, I know where I'm at. I know how to carry myself too. So we good. And I think that is a part of the Baltimore culture that you get. You know what I mean? It's like you know that you don't belong in every hood, but you feel comfortable enough.
Yeah. And I've gotten things. It's like, oh, I've traveled and blah blah blah. I'm going here and going there. It's like, yo, be careful. It's like it's that. It's like I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
I think I'll be okay.
I'm not being goofy right now. Let's just let's live in reality land. This is not Narnia, which is a quote I used to say at work back in the day. I like to live in reality land, and it's a thing. Like, I can be here, probably being in a place I shouldn't be at, doing something I probably shouldn't do that gets me attention that I didn't ask for. And it's the same thing. And I think that it's inherent, it's baked in. And, I'll say from this standpoint where you can go to a city like Chicago, you can go to a city like, New York, which is like 9 cities or what have you. And you can freak out like, yo, this train is a challenge. And I was up there and I was like, yo, I don't know where I'm going. I
don't know what I'm doing.
And I ended up just saying, screw it. I got the Uber. Let me figure out where I'm going. It was $11 and, ultimately it was fine. So when I talked to my man, I kind of had that reset, who was a Baltimore guy that moved up there to Brooklyn, my man, Isaiah. He was like, yo, this is what you should do. These are the stops. Bong, bong, bong. Make sure you do this. I followed to the T what he said. And I felt like, okay, I could stay up here. I could do this because I didn't get caught. I needed at least a Baltimore related Sherpa to hook it up.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, yo, I was on the train and some dude told this other person to suck my dick. And I was like, all right, I'm a New Yorker. I was here. I was here. This happened. I was like, I got the New York experience. Where's my hot dog? You know what I mean?
Facts, bro. Facts.
So talk about, if you will, like the process of music and process and maybe collaborating with someone from a branding standpoint. Talk about where your process starts, what's something that's in the middle. Like ultimately, how does it work? When do you you do your best work? Because sometimes people are like, yo, I'm up late and this is when I'm getting my peak stuff done because everything is quiet. Talk about that.
So my process is very introspective. There's a lot that goes on in my head 24/7. at any given point in time, I'm trying to keep things in balance with myself, because a big thing for me is accountability and ownership. So if I'm doing something wrong, I want to be able to identify it and know it. So how that applies to the creative process is, this is my safe space. I'm in my man cave, or my, the basement, if you will. Yeah. And usually it's late at night. So my kid is asleep, my wife is in her bed, or like doing her own thing and everything along those lines. And I'm down here and I kind of go through like my day, or I'll go through events that have happened. And it's kind of like a checks and balance. Like, I didn't really handle this that well. And then the questions come. I ask myself a lot of questions of, why did I do this? What could I have done differently about this? If I did do something different about this, where could this have gone? And naturally, within answering those questions, I kind of get into like a bit of combat with my own brain, a little bit, like a chess match. And somewhere within there, I'll just hear like a melodic line, or I'll hear like a bass line, like literally feeding into the scenario that I'm creating. Because remember, this goes back to when I was a child. So I would see the vision first, then the music would naturally come. Now that I've been a musician for long enough and I have enough capability, I can record an idea really quick. And it's like, oh, like I have so many voice recordings from 2022 alone. I've got at least over like 100 or 200 voice recordings. And I might consistently sit on an idea, or like spit an idea out over and over and over again, just so I can hear like the simple intricacies of it until I get it. And it's like, this is the take. And then I'll go straight to the laptop, or I'll go straight to my keyboard or my drum set. I love the fact that everything is just available to me. And that's when I'll just start to create. And it's not just with music. That's how I come up with some of my comedic ideas. That's how I come up with some of my rants. Like that's how a lot of the creativity happens in this space. It's like, I just need time to myself to kind of interrogate myself. And then the creative ideas just kind of appears, and it's like, I got you. Now I'm gonna put you in this box and try to package it and push it out that way.
I like that. Every now and again, it's where I think for me is where, if I have the time, if I have the availability, and I think space is a big piece of it. Like, I'm in my studio, all my cool stuff is in here, and I'm able to have fun in here. And every now and again, something comes through, or from around people that it's a creative energy just floating around. Like my partner, it's a creative energy. She's definitely got a creative energy. And just last night, I was watching, this is so ridiculous, but it is funny. We were watching this old episode, those fake TV stations on regular like TV, and it was like Force TV, and it was an episode of Perry Mason, and Yaphet Kotto was in there, and he had like the wild comb over. And then when they panned to Perry Mason, I was like, why is that Francis Ford Coppola? And she was like, did you just call him Francis Ford Coppola? I was like, I did. She was like, okay, he's not, right. She was like, okay, he's not standing up. So you might be right, because he was just sitting down. You know how you watch one of these legal shows, it's like, this is my point. He's doing that while sitting down. I was like, I don't think his ankles are gonna. I was like, I know that feeling, because my ankles don't. And I was like, I'm writing this down. She's like, God damn it, I got him started. And
exactly. And you just got to run with the idea wherever it goes from there.
And that's part of how it goes. It's like this sort of, nothing is stupid, nothing is weird in that way, that you can almost, it's like the interrogation. It's almost having, with minimal interruption, almost a discourse with yourself. Because sometimes I'll sit there and I'll laugh at myself, and I was like, okay, I got to just say this so someone else is in on the bit. Yeah. And even now, like, people will ask, like, if I'm just having conversations, like, are you doing bits right now? It's like, no. It's like, you're obviously doing a bit right now.
These are funny to me. This is I'm not putting this out there just yet.
And you're in a safe, because I'm sharing this with you.
Exactly. What an honor it is to be you in this moment.
You are privileged. What is the most exciting or fun part within the sort of process for you? Like, this is the fun part for me.
The spark. The best part for me is the initial, this is going to be a thing.
Yep.
where it's like, oh, let me go to my voice recorder, let me write this down, let me put this somewhere so I can remember exactly this moment. Because I think that that is where the joy of that's the biggest joy of the experience, was just like, oh, I get to create something. You know what I mean? Like, I get to do something is the best part of it. I think Ernest Shaw, he had mentioned this to me. He was like, I don't think that a piece of art is ever finished or ever completed. It's literally like you just stop working on it, and it's like because because it's never finished. The best part of it is like when you have the idea to make it, and it's like, let me go ahead and add something to it, and then you see it kind of become this full thing. It's like, man, that's the best. That's the best part.
It's almost this challenge. It's funny Ernest would say that because painter, because it's always like painters are the ones that are never done. You know what I mean? But it is this thing where it's like when the thing is done and it's out there, it's like I'm already done with it. You know, so when I get whatever feedback or whatever, sure, that's interesting and it's cool. But once I'm done with this like sort of recording, I'm moving to whatever the next thing is, and looking at it maybe holistically as a body, but sort of the moment in it. That's the thing that's really exciting, and that's the thing that's really fun and really interesting. And there's almost like, maybe this is weird, but it's almost a sort of hollowness once it's done, once it's finished. It's like this conversation can't go on forever. But also the conversation's like, this was a great conversation.
I lied, actually. I lied. My favorite part of any creative process is when you have an idea that feeds into another idea.
That is a good one.
It is like the sweet, like, it's like, oh, I've got an idea. That's cool. I'm enjoying that. And then like another idea just pops up. It's like, but what if you put them together? I was like, yo.
Are you making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? What are you doing here? Is this the creative equivalent of that?
It's the best. It is the best, man. Like, ugh.
Yeah. And I think like one of the things, and I go back to the movie nights, what have you, I like this notion of being able to ideate, having an idea and seeing it come to fruition. And I think because it's part of the larger thing, the larger body, it always feels like it's like I got to tap back in. I'm getting another hit from this sort of creative energy. And I think the thing that's really funny about it, at least from that standpoint, and to a degree here, it's improvisational.
Yeah.
Which keeps it really interesting. If I'm just reading off questions, it's not a lot that's interesting there. It doesn't feel creative. It doesn't feel fun.
One of my favorite art forms is jazz. And the thing that I love about jazz is a lot of it is freeform. So like you get a structure, and it's like whatever you do with that structure is yours, and you get to have all of this freedom. And just as long as you come back and play the head of the tune, you did jazz. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Look, I'm trying to be the Charles Mingus of podcasting. Let's look.
Go.
Look.
Let's go. Let's go.
Just me sitting there like, yo, so can you put that bass down? No.
Never.
So I read that creating, right, is a type of muscle, like flexing that sort of creative muscle, right? We know muscles need to be stretched, warmed up, so on. You lift, I lift, whatever. How do you warm up creatively?
My creative warm-up is always going to come back to those questions that I ask myself. It's always going to come back to what am I trying to explain today? I'm not an advocate of creating just to create, of just putting content out just because everybody else is putting content out. The questions for me is always going to be what's burning inside of me that needs to get out, that needs to, be on page somewhere. I think Unique Robinson, she leads the writers workshop at Motor House. And one of the things that she said in one of her poems was like, when she's done with a poem, the page thanks her because it's like, you gave me purpose. Like you put your heart and soul into this, and thank you. Now it like the page thanks you for like getting it out. Yeah. That's what I look for. And if I don't feel like what I'm doing is going to give me that type of feeling, I know I just need to ask more questions to myself, because there's lots of things that I'm trying to get out, but I need to be motivated enough. So that it's the questions itself that kind of gets me riled up.
Yeah.
My wife would call it like my grumpy mood. It was like, and another thing I need to talk about. You know what I mean? Once you see the finger go up, it's like, oh, he's on his. There it is. The music's with him. You know what I mean?
It's I like that. It's curiosity for me. Because
Yes.
I've been playing with this idea between creating art, creating content, or what have you, and that's a long and going on conversation. I think, I think I approach this as art. I'm not just doing. I'm like, oh, let me talk to everyone I think is popping. Why would I do that? Some of them suck. Some of them aren't interesting. I'd rather talk to people that I think I can hold a conversation with, and maybe we can have sort of this maybe discourse, but also it's an opportunity to kind of, facilitate that storytelling, but also maybe learn something from each other. And I find that a lot of the conversations go really well, and that's not content to me. That's something that's outside of that.
This is just something I enjoy doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And something that other people get value out of, I suppose, where it's like, oh, wow, learning more about this person's process, or I really needed to hear that. I was on the fence about my own creativity. And I was in a class today and we were talking about it. And I think I told you a little bit about what my project is going to be about. And 3 or 4 people were like, wow, I feel like that video idea, a bunch of creatives need to hear, because that's a shared feeling of having the naysayer, having all of the stuff in your head that plays when you're creating or having the courage, to create. There's something that's protective in you that's saying, you shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. I think I got an answer for this one, but I'm still going to answer it. I mean, still going to ask it.
Okay.
How do you embrace your strangeness? Those qualities that make you unique, that make you uniquely you and uniquely equipped in your creative pursuits?
The way that I embrace my strangeness is by looking at society and seeing the fucking mess that society. Excuse me.
No, please.
Excuse my friend. Seeing the mess that society is really lets me be like, I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm okay being odd, because
I'm not doing that.
I've seen what normal is, and I'm so good. I'm okay. I'm all right. I embrace my oddity like that. The one of the things that I love that I saw online recently was you got to be in a perpetual cycle of do no harm and take no shit, right? So as long as I'm not harming anyone and no one's trying to give me shit, I'm okay. Well, let me have my strangeness. You know what I mean? Let me be this person.
Like, why you can't? That's exactly. Literally.
Why does it harm me? Like I remember one of the stories that lives in infamy is I went out when I was a child. I had to be like 6 or 7 years old. And my mom took us out to Applebee's, and my aunt was there. And Applebee's was always like me and my mom's thing. So I was already irritated that my aunt was there, because she liked to kind of pick with people a little bit. So I'm going and ordering everything like that. She was like, Raymond, what are you going to order? I was like, well, I think I'm going to get this burger. She was like, a burger? You could go anywhere and get that. I just sat my menu down. I was like, are you going to eat it? Is it yours? Why are you there? And I got in trouble for it. I remember getting in trouble because you can't talk to an adult like that. I'm like, all right, well, let me be odd. Let me do my thing.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Is it affecting you somehow? I don't understand why.
I've done this thing when it comes to this. Like early on, people were very weird when it comes to, you're doing a podcast? Ugh, what's that? You're in your mom's basement? I was like, I'm gonna make money from this one day. Or I like, why do you care? Like, what is this?
Why do you matter? This is my thing.
It used to be a thing. People ask you, what do you do? Like when I was out there dating, it's like, oh, I'm a podcaster. I ain't ghosting you. And then that was literally the energy. And I was like, all right, cool. Or the thing of, and I still get it on occasion now, you don't look like a podcaster. I was like, yo, this is wild, right? And, it's just like, I'm just going to be in this little lane. I'm going to make my own lane out of it. I'm going to figure this out, and it's going to go really well. And that's just really what it is. And if it doesn't, why do I care if it doesn't? I'm just going to keep doing it. It's this, I know I'm going to mispronounce it, but it's this Garabasu idea of regardless of what it is, I'm going to do my best.
I think that when you make your own lane, you are not worried about being replaced by anyone. Like when you consistently know how to make your own lane and make your own space, replacement is not a concern. It's like, oh, well, This has been a very lonely lane, but it's my lane and I enjoy it.
So let's see. I got one last real question for you, and then I got some rapid fire questions. Right, we all know that social media and everyone on social media is living their best life. We all know how that goes. Everyone is just never lost. Everyone is LeVar Ball, no losses, always winning. And I know this idea, this concept of creativity is killed by comparison. So through your lens, through your approach, what have you, like, how do you combat that sort of comparison? Because regardless, you'll have people in your ear, like, at least I know for me, hey, why don't you do this sort of like barbershop style podcast? Or why don't you do video? Why don't you shift into this? It's like, because that's not what I'm doing. But there naturally is sort of a comparison, or if it's you're the person that's in the lane, like you're kind of like driving this and you're just doing your thing. Naturally, people try to like connect you to another person. It's like, I'm not doing that. To do that sort of comparison work for you. And you start looking, it's like, all right, you got this. Why didn't I get it? You know what I mean? So talk about comparison through your creativity.
Comparison for me has everything to do with shifting that paradigm. So comparison and like the sense that you just brought it up, I sense like envy, jealousy, or anything like that. And that's a very natural thing for a lot of people to feel. For me personally, trying to shift that envy or jealousy to just appreciation, where it's just like I can look at what somebody else is doing online and be like, wow, I can really appreciate that for what it is. And it's different from mine. And I'm okay with that. That's a different way that I've tried to look at it. Another thing that I do just to kind of protect myself is for long stretches of time, I just will not put things into the creative space.
You're right.
I will take a social media fast and I won't post anything. I might look at things. I might not even do that. I just might get into this space where it's just like, I think like 2 years ago, I was like creating content online and I went from Meme Monday to Talk to Me Tuesday to Wisdom Wednesday to Throwback Thursday to New Content Friday to Support Saturday to Support Sunday. And like, I just got into this cycle of like just trying to put things out to keep up with everybody else. Yeah. And I got into this point where it's like, how much of this is my authentic voice? And when I asked myself that question, I realized not a lot of this is my authentic voice. I shut up. I just kind of took my voice offline. And I think one of the things that a lot of creatives miss out on is the idea of creating authentically and not creating so you can get engagement. I think that social media it's kind of like credit. It gives you enough validation to kind of do yourself in with. Yeah. So what I try to do is when I feel like things are getting out of hand, I'll just pull back and be like, I don't necessarily need this as much. I think I'm funny. I like the music that I make. I like the things that I'm doing. And once I finally come back and start putting things out, people always like, it was like, oh, where have you been? I've loved this, blah, blah, blah. This is such a good thing. We've been waiting to hear this perspective. So I feel like that's the thing that's always kind of kept me balanced and kind of kept my feet on the ground.
I like that. And yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah, man.
Must be that city right there.
It's the city.
It's that city, that beard, and that ball that just all together.
I'm alternate universe you.
I have a couple doppelgangers. It's wild. It is wild. I was like, look, man. So I got some rapid fire questions for you. I got 5 of them. Okay. Don't overthink them. Don't overthink them. All right. What is the last thing that you search for on YouTube?
Oh, so there's this guy that does did you know videos for movies. So he's like, did you know that in Star Wars, this person's like, he just has like all these like Easter eggs and gems and everything like that. Yeah. I just went into like a whole
rabbit hole
for hours. My wife was like, what are you doing? I was like, shut up, you're making me miss the points.
That's funny.
It's great, man. It's like, did you know, I just learned this one last night, that so in The Empire Strikes Back, they kept it from leaking by lying to everybody. So when they filmed it, he said, Obi-Wan killed your father. And everybody thought that was the thing. But on the premiere, they dubbed over his voice and said, I am your father. changed the whole way.
Yeah.
That's why everybody just flipped, like even the actors, because they said Harrison Ford looked at Mark Hamill and was like, "You didn't tell me that shit." Yeah. And it's like, I would not know this if I didn't go on YouTube. I would not know it.
I mean, that's a version of what I was doing on those movie nights. I was like, look, I like trivia. Here's some trivia.
I love it.
And it's a thing. You get into the oral history.
Yeah.
How many hours of sleep do you typically get?
6. And that's on a good night. If
rough times.
If the muse is here, I might get 2 or 3.
I feel like
yeah. Between 2 and 6.
I feel like Dusty Rhodes is keeping me up. It's like hard time, dead ass. You're not going to sleep. It's like shit.
Yeah.
Favorite drummer. I know that's gonna be a thing. The facial expression said it all, didn't it?
Yeah, I like that guy a lot.
Me and him had the same birthday, by the way.
Fair enough. I like that guy a lot. Thomas Pridgen is the one that just keeps jumping out in my head, though. If anyone challenges that, just listen to Lotus and okay, so my favorite musician, period, hands down, is Thundercat, right?
That's one of my guys.
And when I listen to Lotus and the Jondi and I hear Thomas Pridgen go ham, each time I have to jump up and say, shit! Like, he's that good. Like, I'll just be driving and in the middle of his show, I was like, shit! It's like you just hear something different each time. The guy's a monster.
I like not only with the audio of it, your face changes when it happens too.
Exactly. Like you feel like your body just tense up.
You turn into a cue for a second. I mean, you have those sort of idols, and I'm not a big podcast listener. When people ask me like, "What's your favorite podcast?" It's like, it just bleeds into what I'm doing. So it's like I kind of avoid, but I maybe look at it from a different way. Like you might ask me who's my favorite interviewer, you know what I mean? Or things of that nature. And I take different things from different people. So like, I like what Questlove does on, Questlove Supreme. I like what James Lipton would do or have you on his How to Actor Studio, or even Sean Evans from Hot Ones. I mean, I'm not giving you, I'm not like Uber Eatsing you like some barbecue wings or something, but still these are questions that may have, especially with the rapid fire part, may not have anything to do with what we talked about before.
Big facts.
Who was the artist that made you want to become an artist?
Jay-Z.
Okay.
Jay-Z's storytelling was amazing. And I didn't really like hip hop or rap like that before. I kind of I enjoyed it because it was like the thing that you were supposed to enjoy when you were Black. But when I heard Jay-Z's Blueprint the first time, that changed everything in my mind. That changed everything. Because like hearing his storytelling, hearing girls, hearing Song Cry, like hearing all of these, like he has a very magnificent way of telling a story, and it's transferable to almost every discipline. Like I've seen pieces of art that are constructed from his lyrics. I've seen people like break down his book and everything along. Like I feel like this might be egregious to say, but I feel like he's a genius. I personally feel like that. And when I saw that, each time that I'm looking for inspiration, I always try to go back to that moment where I was at Lake Clifton, because it came out in 2001. And I was at Lake Clifton on the C&D side. I had it on a tape. Yeah. And I was like, man, this is fine. I just had to flip it. Because I was too broke. I didn't have CDs, so I had it on cassette. I was like, yeah, this is great. I like hip hop now.
I mean, because of my inner pettiness, I have a fair amount of pettiness. It's like, Takeover's coming on right about now. I mean, I'm just saying. I was just like, and the thing that was interesting about it, the sampling that was in it, it's a Doors song, like 5 to 1 or what have you, and I was really into the Doors then. Yeah, I had a wild eclectic music taste, and from City into Morgan, and some of the looks that people were just saying, why are you into that?
Doing this?
It's like, why don't you kick rocks?
Let me enjoy Linkin Park and all these things. Just the mind fuck that happened when it was like two of my favorite things decided to go into a collision course. I was like, I knew I was right. Because after that, everybody else was like, oh, I love Linkin Park. I was like,
you over there making Gundam wings.
You wasn't listening to Crawling.
You're making Gundam wings while Breaking the Habit is playing.
Exactly. You don't know nothing about that. Oh,
I mean, that was such a thing. People, we had this one guy at City. He was just making people's Gundams for them, making the models. He's making bread. I was like,
man.
something is wrong about this. You know what I mean? Like, this is the point for you to make it yourself and paint it.
It is the point. That's the very therapeutic part of making Gundams. It's another thing I want to get back into.
Man, I used to do the model cars, and I gotta get back to my things. So here's the last question I got for you. And maybe that was the answer. But what was the first album you fell in love with?
Mama's Gun. Mama's Gun by Erykah Badu. That set. It wasn't until I heard that album that I was like, this is the kind of music that I like. Like you know how you hear things consistently. It's like, oh, that's a nice song. Oh, that's a nice song. And it's like, I never found like an album that I would just want to listen to consistently. Mm-hmm. I listened to Mama's Gun when it first came out at least 10 times in a row. And it was my sister Joey. Yeah. She was like in the living room. I was on the computer, like trying to like figure out film and everything like that. This is like the year 2000, where I had like one of those like brick digital cameras that was like this big. And I was trying to figure things out. And she just kept, the more like the first 2 times she played the album, I was like, this shit a vibe. This is nice. And it's like after a while, I just kind of stopped what I was doing. I just kept listening. And I was like, what's the name of this? What is this? Where can I find this? And even now, like if you, I don't know, if
I see it.
Goosebumps on my arms, bro. Like Mama's Gun is special, and especially when you get into like the intricacy of it, how she changed the track listing of it at like the very last minute so it could fit sonically a little bit better. That was it. That was chef's kiss.
I mean, that's great. I don't know if I have an answer for that question for me. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. You have a favorite artist of all time?
Same. I don't know if I have an answer for it. I can say this though. I'm a person that's really big into the amount of work someone does. So like right now, like I like Krungbin like a lot. Toriwa I like a lot. And it's kind of the thing that you were touching on earlier. That's how I feel. Like I think I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but I think rap has gotten so disposable. It can be a bop, it can be enjoyable, but it's not like something that for me, for my taste and sensibilities, that I'm going to be hooked on. I find myself being hooked on other genres, and because I had the blinders on for so long, that I'm able to dip back into different genres. I was like, yo, this is fire. So if someone would go through my Spotify and they're like, you are insane, you like everything. And I mean, you know, you might have like, I think I found this Swedish rock song that was at Union yesterday, and the guitar on it is so fire. And I was like, I'm here. I need more of this Viking music. Let's make it happen. And it works. Or, you know, even finding like Vaporwave. I really like that as a genre. Nice. Vaporwave slaps.
You gotta put me on. And now I gotta look all these things up.
Just go into anime and just type in anime, kind of like almost like anime 80s music.
Okay.
That's Vaporwave.
I'm already kind of sold on that.
Yeah. You're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna enjoy it. So with that, I want to move into this kind of like the wrap up portion here. And you know, thank you for being on this podcast. And I want to welcome you. I want to thank you again and invite and encourage you to tell the fine folks where they can check you out, your work, and all things Spence. Get those musings. There's a lot of musings that go out.
All right. So first up is Spence Start. That's on Instagram at Spence SPENCE _START start. I also manage the marketing for Motor House here in Baltimore City. So please follow Motor House. That's a part of my job. It is at MOTORHOUSE BALTIMORE Baltimore. There's also another card game that I run. Oh, well, I don't run it. I'm co-owner of. It's Mr. J Gaming. So it's MRJGAMING. That's also on Instagram. And finally, where you can follow the music. The band that I'm playing right now is called the Storage Unit Collective. We have the vibe check at Motor House the second Thursday of every month. So this upcoming Thursday is the vibe check. And you can follow us on Instagram at the underscore storage unit, that's one word together, and underscore collective. I don't need to spell that out because that's
Well, there you have it, folks. I want to again thank my man Spence for coming on, chopping it up with me. And I'm Rob Lee, saying there's art, culture, conversation in and around your neck of the woods. You just got to look for it.